You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
Artificial intelligence could never. You need the real deal. Time-tested, illustrious guide into the unknown. Yours truly, of course. Don't miss the unexplained.
New episodes. Watch now, only on the History Channel.
The life of a trucker is awful lonely. It can turn your life upside down. Throw me 100 miles of hell, and I'll take your load to the other end. I love that feeling of living on the edge.
Ice can be a stone-cold killer. But luckily for fans, this channel lives on. All day, every day. Ice Road Truckers, available 24/7 on Samsung TV Plus.
Ruskin, Florida. For the first time in 53 years, the family of Alcatraz escapees John and Clarence England is sharing evidence with the United States government.
I think that Art thought that he was probably wasting his time coming down to talk to us, but once I handed him that picture, I think a light bulb went off in his head.
This photograph was given to us by a friend of the family.
The Widener brothers have just shown former U.S. Marshal Art Roderick a picture of two men whom they claim is their uncles, 13 years after the 1962 escape.
My mind's are.
You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
Ice can be a stone-cold killer. But luckily for fans, this channel lives on. All day, every day. Ice Road Truckers, available 24/7 on Samsung TV Plus.
Members.
You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
Ice can be a stone-cold killer. But luckily for fans, this channel lives on. All day, every day. Ice Road Truckers, available 24/7 on Samsung TV Plus.
You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
The truck's on fire!
I can't see.
Tell me this don't get your heart pumping!
Ice Road Truckers. New episodes. Watch now.
You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
Has just been explored and is supported by evidence that was presented by the family of the escaped Englands. Even more incredible, the theory is also corroborated by a potential eyewitness account, the only one of its kind, from a young beat cop in 1962 named Robert Checky, an account detailed in an Oakland Tribune article in the days after the escape.
He's probably the only person, in my opinion, that would have a lot of credibility who witnessed something that could have been related to the escape.
But that cop, for some reason, has been lost to history.
We looked for him for a long time, but couldn't locate him.
Back in Northern California, and after years of searching, Michael Esslinger may have located the former cop who may be the sole eyewitness to America's greatest prison escape.
Excited.
Hi there.
Hi.
Come on in. Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. How's
Good,
everything?
good. I've been looking for you for 15 years. Yeah.
I'm a retired police inspector, San Francisco Police Department, 30 years service. In 1962, I was 25 years old. I was assigned the Mission Patrol Station. On June 11th, I got off my shift. So I just went down the Marina Greens, as we call it. That was one of my childhood places that we used to surf and swim out there. I happened to see a boat which just kind of came from the east end of the bay, and it was in between Alcatraz and where I was standing at the yacht club. It was very, very suspicious because that time of the morning, you wouldn't have any boats out there like that. It was cold, dampish, but I could see the boat was pristine. It was very clean, and I would call it a party boat. Looking at it, I didn't see any poles hanging out or like somebody was actually fishing there. No, it was just sitting there, and it sat there for a period of time, maybe 15 minutes to a half hour.
Checky says the ship was about 60 feet in length and situated halfway to Alcatraz, some 500 yards away from his position at the shoreline.
It was just very, very unusual to see it sitting there, we'll say, shut down, and nobody making noise for help or anything else.
And then, Checky says, after 15 or 20 minutes, it was gone.
I mean, it started up just like you would start a car, and it just headed out towards the Golden Gate Bridge.
3 bank robbers disappeared from Alcatraz prison.
I didn't know what had happened at Alcatraz until the next morning, and everything in my mind clicked that that's how they got away. So I made the proper police reports and everything. I was contacted by the FBI. We went around to all the harbors around the immediate Bay Area here trying to find the boat. It was a big boat, very clean, white. Should have been easy to spot, but we didn't see it anywhere in our travels looking for it.
The alternate theory Roderick and the brothers have been exploring tells us that the 3 escapees tied themselves to the back of the prison launch, a ship that they knew would routinely leave Alcatraz at night, heading for the mainland. If the 3 prisoners somehow organized the getaway boat to linger in between Alcatraz Island and the city's shoreline, might the former cop have witnessed their successful escape?
Well, I feel it makes everything completely reasonable, because if they got off Alcatraz on some makeshift raft or something like that, and they could make it several hundred yards to, say, a waiting boat, then they made it. Now, hearing the evidence that you have, now it tells me that what I saw is what I did see. They got on that boat headed out the Golden Gate Bridge, and off they went.
If Checky's account is accurate, who might have been piloting the waiting boat? Or who helped them plot their getaway? That question is on the tip of Roderick's mind as he makes his way to official Marshal's headquarters. He wants to learn more about the Englund family friend who claims to have taken pictures of Alcatraz inmates John and Clarence Englund in Brazil in 1975, 13 years after.
The family friend, you said, gave you the photo. Obviously, you have his name.
That is Fred Breezy. Fred Breezy, he was a family friend of the boys growing up.
Hey, how are you doing?
Henry, how are you, buddy?
Good to see you.
Roderick has asked Chief Inspector Henry Geberth if the Marshals have anything on Breezy in their files.
I did some digging.
You can now select your ad experience. Interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
Fugitives, brothers John and Clarence Englund, along with Frank Morris, escaped from the Rock, stepped into frigid waters, and, having never been found, secured a mythical place in American history.
The main reason why Alcatraz Island still captivates everyone is because these three individuals did the unimaginable. It was really the great escape.
Half a century later, the details of that historic night are coming into focus. An eyewitness account from a law enforcement officer with an unblemished 30-plus-year career confirms the only sighting of a potential getaway vessel waiting in San Francisco Bay the night of the escape.
They got on that boat headed out the Golden Gate Bridge, and off they went.
And proof from the U.S. Marshals that Fred Breezy was in fact a drug runner and childhood friend of the escaped Anglin brothers.
Nobody positively, absolutely knows they're alive, really.
His criminal history dates back to 1946.
Wow. Still, former U.S. Marshal Art Roderick knows that much hangs on the forensic results of the mysterious still photograph from Brazil.
At the end of the day, we can come up with every theory in the world, but right now, there's nothing other than this photograph to show that they made it out.
Or is there?
Now a handwritten letter is again raising questions about whether the men survived the frigid waters and deadly currents of San Francisco Bay.
Somebody sent me an email and said, have you seen this new letter regarding Alcatraz?
Now, a letter claims all three lived well into old age.
Here's the actual letter itself. It's in blue ink, and you can tell it's in cursive with quite a few grammatical mistakes and crossouts. There was no date as to when it was actually written, but there's a postmark, October of 2013. It says, my name is John Anglin. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely. I'm very sick. I have cancer. I want to be assured that if I turn myself in, I'll only do a year in jail and I'll get medical attention.
The letter, allegedly penned by escapee John Anglin, was delivered to law enforcement 5 years ago, but was kept under official wraps until it was somehow leaked to the press.
It says that I lived in Minot, North Dakota for a period of time. I lived in Seattle for a period of time, and I'm currently in Southern California. And that if you put this letter out on TV and come out on TV and talk about this letter, then I will get back in touch with you and turn myself in.
The letter clearly states that the prisoners made it through the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay and lived as free men for almost half a century. What the letter doesn't say is anything at all about a getaway boat, nor does it mention Fred Breezy. Still, the former marshal has interest in its detail.
When I look at the circumstances of the letter, and the content and what's in there, it sounds very logical. I mean, it sounds like that if they did get away, this could very well be a possibility. I mean, they're in their mid to late 80s. Could they have cancer? Very, very possibly. A lot of people turn themselves in just to get medical attention at a prison facility. So do the contents of the letter sound somewhat like a possibility? Yes, they do.
For the Anglin family, the revelation of an existing letter from their escaped relative, which clearly states that both brothers lived into their 80s, drums up a range of emotions.
When I first heard about the letter, I was like, oh my God, this is wild. Finally, he's reaching out. I was blown away.
My mom was very excited. She was like, okay, here's contact with someone who might be John. But I think her emotions turned the same way that everybody else's did in the family. It went from, I'm very excited that this is happening, to, well, why did it take years for you to tell us about it, and you're not even the ones who told us about it?
The more I read it, I really started getting angry about it. I was like, wow, so this letter supposedly come out in 2013, and he's reaching out to y'all saying that he's got cancer, and this is the first the family is hearing about it. I was outraged about it.
The Anglins say their outrage over the letter is typical of how they've felt since the earliest days of the escape. When the FBI conducted surveillance on their Florida home, listened to their conversations, and harassed each member of the family.
If it was
Notwithstanding the family's anger and frustration with the marshals, there are aspects of the letter which, if proven accurate, would rattle the foundation of what they've always believed to be true.
There's no reference at all to any South America, Central America, or Mexico routes.
In fact, the letter says the men lived and went north for many years, to places like North Dakota and Seattle, not to Brazil.
It has always been my belief, from all the studies that I've been able to do, and I've done a lot, that their escape took them south. If this letter turned out to be true, then that means the whole narrative of what I am sure happened would change.
What's more, if John and Clarence lived into their 80s, would they not have reached out to their large family at some point in the intervening half-century? The family says it's not so simple.
They had people like Whitey Bulger tell them, do not contact your family because they're going to watch your family. And if you do contact your family, they're going to bring heat down on your family. So I feel like that they would not have reached out to any of the other brothers and sisters based on the fact that they knew when they left that prison that night, when they walked away, the only way for them to have total freedom was to never look back.
You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
The frigid waters and deadly currents of San Francisco Bay.
The revelation of a letter delivered to law enforcement in 2013 claims the 3 legendary Alcatraz escapees made it through frigid waters to a long life of freedom.
My name is John England. I escaped from Alcatraz in 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank. It says, yes, we all made it that night, but barely. It definitely sets the tone that all 3 of them made it right off the bat. And it's coming to realization at the end of his life that maybe I need to set some things straight.
The details of the letter, however, challenge the Brazil narrative that the Anglin family has believed for many years, that their kin made their way to South America and started new lives and families in Brazil.
There's a lot in here that doesn't make sense, but you still can't discredit the fact that someone reached out. And why would someone play a hoax like this? What would someone gain of sending a letter over 50 years later? What would they gain by this?
To answer that question and others, the family's conduit to law enforcement, former U.S. Marshal Art Roderick, has asked Michael Dyke, the current marshal on the case, to meet him once again.
Tell me about this letter from 2013.
In late 2013, Richmond Station here, which is SFPD, received a letter. The envelope was anonymous, so we didn't know who it came from. You know, initially you kind of think it's a hoax, but you never fully go that way on it. You have to research every little part of it, and then that's not the first one we received.
Right.
So there's been other ones, and the other letters we received weren't as specific as this one. So we did some forensic tests. We sent the letter off to FBI, and they checked handwriting samples. I have some letters that were written by both John and Clarence Anglin, and some handwriting samples from Frank Morris as well, just in case. And there was nothing that was even a close match. Even the way he wrote his name was not even close to the way John Anglin wrote his name.
So you're not discounting the possibility that maybe somebody else could have written a letter for them?
Yeah, that is a possibility, because at the time the letter would have been written, he would have been in his 80s, and the handwriting is too smooth even to be an 80-year-old person's handwriting. So there's a lot of factors, and there is a possibility somebody could have written it for him. The FBI lab also did check for DNA. They had the envelope, so they looked for DNA. They couldn't find any matches of DNA or anything like that. And they tried fingerprints. They couldn't get any usable prints off the letter.
Some of the other things, too, of interest was, you know, these were guys from the South.
Yeah.
and yet they were talking about living in Fargo. That seemed a little odd to me.
It is odd because they were always in the South. They were always in southern climate. Occasionally they would go up to Traverse City, Michigan, because they had relatives up there, and they used to do fruit picking in their younger years before they went into prison. Obviously, it's really difficult to try and find some 80-year-old men who lived in Fargo, North Dakota, and other parts of North Dakota, and then Seattle. And how are you going to check a database for that? There's really no database to check to find out people living in all those
under
places.
An assumed name that
under
you don't
assumed
have.
names,
Right.
and over what age range, because they'd be under assumed ages as well. It wouldn't just be the same age. The one thing that we could kind of check a little bit was the claim that Morris died in October 2008 in Alexandria.
Right.
And we did as much obituary checking as we could, went through all the newspaper articles, and we've never been able to confirm anybody of that age range dying that we could not positively identify.
There's also one thing, Dyke says, that is telling. The inmates had a predilection for crime.
They were all career criminals.
Right.
There's a slight possibility that one of the three of them would have never committed a crime again, but all three of them living and not any of them committing a crime again, it's virtually impossible.
Right. There's been other bogus leads where people have either called in or written letters. I mean, in your opinion, why do people do that?
Some people just want attention.
So what is the official position from the Marshal Service on this letter?
The Marshal Service has discounted this letter as a hoax.
That the letter has been officially debunked by law enforcement means one thing at least. Fred Breezy's wild tale about seeing John and Clarence Englund in Brazil is still very much in play. Will Breezy's picture of the boys in Brazil hold up against scientific scrutiny? Are the two men in the picture from 1975 Alcatraz escapees John and Clarence Englund? Facial imaging expert Michael Streed has completed his detailed analysis of the photo and has asked Roderick to join him.
Here. I mean, everything you see points to the fact that this matches up, that matches up, but this doesn't.
I see more here that's similar than I see that's dissimilar.
I'm listening to every word you say, but my mind is going 100 miles an hour here trying to figure out what we do next. I just never expected you telling me that you as an investigator, based on your experience, would take the next step. Absolutely.
Don't stop now.
Okay.
Keep going.
All right. I can't believe this.
You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
Thanks to shocking new evidence introduced by the family members themselves.
Nobody positively, absolutely knows they're alive, really, but me.
But it's the forensic analysis of the alleged Brazil photos that just blew Roderick away.
So you don't see any dissimilarities here. I mean, everything you see points to the fact that this matches up, that matches up, but this doesn't.
I see more here that's similar than I see that's dissimilar.
You can now select your ad experience, interact with an ad for 30 seconds and get right back to your content, or continue with a longer commercial break.
I mean, it was the maximum security joint in the United States at the time, in the early 60s. Nobody was supposed to be able to escape from this facility. So somebody that does the impossible is always forefront in everybody's mind. Well, how did they do that? How did they actually get away?
Cracking the rock is only part of the mystique that surrounds the 1962 Alcatraz escape. That the three inmates were never heard from again, that there was never a single lead in 50-plus years, is what makes this cold case so extraordinarily unique. This fact sheds light on why this investigation, the Brazil photos, Officer Checky's eyewitness account, Fred Breezy's story, and the final forensic results of the photos is so interesting to the U.S. Marshals. Roderick is back in Washington, D.C., and has called a meeting with the top brass of his former agency. His plan is to reveal the shocking outcome of his investigation. Forensic results that state the picture of John and Clarence in Brazil in 1975 is highly likely them.
This, right now, to me, seems to be probably the best lead, and I think the Marshal Service will probably agree. And we've got several branches coming in from the Marshal's Fugitive Investigative Unit. We have the domestic branch and the international branch both coming in. Okay, first of all, thank everybody for listening to what we've done over the past few months. The photographs in and of themselves are interesting, but what's also interesting is the tape that the family made of this individual that provided the photographs.
The whole situation of it is, nobody positively, absolutely knows they're alive, really, but me.
His name is Fred Breezy. They taped him in 1992, actually sitting down in their house talking about their trip to Brazil in 1975 and these particular photographs. These are photos of the alleged farm in Brazil. This is supposedly some river near the farm, which is outside of Rio in the Tabate region. Here's some of the points that were picked out by the individual that we had that did the analysis that determined that he believed that these individuals were more than likely John and Clarence Angle. So the Brazil connection seemed to be the most interesting thing. When you listen to the tape and you looked at the transcript, there's a lot of detailed information in there about the farm that they supposedly owned. And I think when we put all that information together, it seemed like there was at least enough information to check on. From the international guys, based on stuff that you've seen here. I mean, what do you think?
Recently, we've had some bilateral training events with Brazilian federal police and their fugitive unit specifically, where we have the cooperation, I think, and the resources available to sort of run some of this down. And if we could tap that resource to assist in your investigation, then we're happy to do so.
What I've heard so far here, I think it's reasonable enough to go down and see what we can come up with and talk, and especially if we have the cooperation of the federal police down there. I mean, when you think about the amount of time and effort that's been put into this investigation since 1962, you know, we're still looking for these guys after 50 years, and the message that gets out to current fugitives that we have is we're not going to stop looking for you. That's, you know, what the Marshal Service is here for, is to track these guys down.
After 56 years investigating the Alcatraz escape, the U.S. Marshals finally have a solid lead to pursue.
There's only one thing to do at this point. We have to go to Brazil and try to locate the farm in Brazil.
For the family of the escaped, the renewed interest from the American government is a long time coming.
We set out, me and David, we sat down and we said, you know what? We want the answers. I believe we've gotten those answers. And I believe that we're going to close a lot of the chapters, and I believe we're about to write some new ones.
The only thing left to do is go find them. Go find my uncles.
It's time for us to go meet some relatives that I have never met before.